Ladies, this story starts with you. I'd like you to imagine that you live in a hot climate and you need to go out to a well nearby to draw some water. You want to go at what you think is going to be the quietest time of the day. So you get to the well expecting to see no one else there. As you come through the trees towards the well, you look up and you count 13 men by the well. Here's the question for you. Would you carry on and draw water, or would you turn around, go home and come back later? Now hands up those of you that would try and carry on and draw water. 3 of you. Hands up those of you that would turn around, go home and come back later. Oh my goodness me. Keep your hands up. 5, 6, 7, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 38 of you would turn around, go home and come back later. I want to look with you at a story in the Bible that starts off with a woman in self-isolation and finishes in salvation. Why does it finish that way? It finishes that way because of the grace, the truth and the love of one man. Just to give you a little bit of quick introduction, Jesus has been travelling with his disciples in the region of Judea. He's going back to Galilee and he decides to take a route through Samaria. He comes to a town called Sychar, near to which is a very famous well called Jacob's Well. Now remember, it's 12 noon. It's hot, hot, hot. 12 disciples plus Jesus. And what does he do? He sends 12 of them into Sychar to get some food. 12 blokes to get 13 sandwiches. No comments, ladies, please. So Jesus is by himself with this group of guys. They've gone into town and suddenly this Samaritan woman appears. Now, in reality then, she didn't have that choice that I gave you later. And why is that? Because Jesus has cleared the scene for a one-to-one with her. It's what I call a divine appointment. Jesus is brilliant in one-to-one conversations with people. You can read the whole story for yourself in John's Gospel, chapter 4, and it's the first 42 verses. And as I said, I haven't got time to look at everything, but I want to just pick out a couple of key details. There are 2 thirsty people in this story. Jesus, who knows it, and the woman who doesn't. Now Jesus takes the initiative and he says, "Will you give me a drink?" Well, that surprises her for a start, because John writes that Jews have no dealings with Samaritans. Well, there's an understatement if ever there was one. And Jesus, she's very surprised at this, and she says to him, "Well, you know, how can I give you a drink? You've got absolutely nothing to draw water with." And Jesus answers her in verse 10, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." Living water. It's a gift from God. And it's a gift for Gentiles and for Jews. Because God is an inclusive God. They get into another little bit of discussion and Jesus says to her, "Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again." Well, of course, he's referring to the water in the well. but whoever drinks the water I give him will never thirst. The woman says to Jesus, well, sir, give me this water because I don't want to keep coming here every day. Jesus says, go and call your husband and come back. Bang. You want to know the reason why this woman's isolated? There it is. She replies that she hasn't got one. And Jesus says, no, you've had 5 husbands and the one that you're living in with now isn't your husband. Wow. She feels exposed. Imagine if Jesus could see through us like that. He does do. She's feeling isolated. You see, in that culture, women of the day would go together. And they'd go together at dusk when the temperature had cooled, and they'd go out chatting together to draw water. But this lady is isolated. They've already rejected her. 5 husbands she's had, and the man she's living with now is not a husband. She's actually given up on marriage even. She's just living with a guy. And everyone in that village would have known her history. You know, Jesus specialises in rejected people. Have you ever felt rejected? When we do, we need to talk to Jesus because he specialises in rejected people. Lepers, prostitutes, tax collectors, publicans, demon-possessed. I could go on and on. I said a few minutes ago that the story ends in salvation, but I want you to find out how by reading that passage I referred to. The first 42 verses of John's Gospel, chapter 4. Because I'm going to leave you now and I'm going to go into Sychar and get some food with the rest of the disciples.